This is the Content and AI podcast, episode number 30. The rise of generative AI affects every type of content practice, including the venerable institution of technical communication. Jack Molisani runs both a TechCom staffing agency and the annual LavaCon Content Strategy Conference, which he's now organized for more than 20 years. Jack brings a deeply informed perspective to the conversation around the introduction of AI into content practice, especially its impact on employment prospects for technical communicators.
Welcome to the Content and AI podcast, where experts on artificial intelligence share their wisdom with the content community. Our mission is to demystify and democratize AI, to make its principles and practices accessible to all content practitioners. And now here's your host, Larry Swanson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 30 of the Content and AI podcast. I'm really excited today to welcome to the show Jack Molisani. Jack is a legend in the technical communication and technical content strategy world. He's the executive director of the LavaCon Content Strategy Conference. He also runs a staffing agency called ProSpring Staffing. So welcome, Jack. Tell the folks a little bit more about what you're up to these days.
Wow. Okay. As you said, I'm running around two spheres. One is producing the LavaCon conference and content strategy, and the other one is running a staffing agency for technical writers and other content professionals. Although we also have a division that does engineers, and there's some crossover there. What's interesting, and it's kind of almost a side note, but since you asked what I've been up to, is I've discovered that it's almost impossible for me to land new staffing clients over the internet anymore.
Interesting. What's going on there?
It used to be that someone would post a job on LinkedIn and I'd wait 2 weeks. And if it's still there, I said, hey, could you use some help finding someone? And they'll tell me yes or no. Well, a couple of things happened. One is LinkedIn bifurcated your message inbox. It now has two labels, focused and other. And it didn't announce this. And suddenly all my responses were going to other, and I thought I had an empty inbox where once I discovered this other tab, had people responding to me for 2 years saying, yes, we need help. Oh, God. And by then they don't need help anymore. And two, LinkedIn opened an API so people could use tools to email thousands of people at a time. So suddenly mine and every other inbox is just filled with spam, and trying to weed all through that to find the real communication piece. And then they added a third option on their reply screen. Thanks. It's like a pre-populated answer that says, thanks, but not interested. Thanks, call me. Thanks, but not interested. And delete without responding.
Ooh.
So now managers are just going delete, 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 not even saying no, I'm good, or yes or please. So I have discovered that I'm going old school and meeting people in person. So I've been going to trade shows. I just got back from a software engineering trade show yesterday, and it's going to come back to that when we talk about AI in a second, and a manufacturing trade show 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks from now, I'm going to a semiconductor trade show just to go around and talk to people in person. Going, hi, I'm Jack Molisani. Here's my card. If you don't need me now, maybe you'll need me in the future. And I'm guessing people who have their own technical writing services or are independent contractors are like that. The other thing I've seen is now on LinkedIn, where people post a job, it now tells you how many people have applied for that job. So within a half hour, it says 100 people applied for the job already. And you go, really? Until a friend of mine said, no. What really that means is 100 people clicked on the job to read it. They didn't necessarily apply for it.
Interesting.
So I just don't trust anything I read anymore.
Yeah.
We've come to that point. They said it was coming. It's here.
Well, that's so because the reason I wanted to have you on this podcast specifically is because this is the new one about AI. And
Mhm.
when we first talked, we were talking about your journey into AI. But I'm going to just jump way ahead. I think my prediction is that one of the outcomes of this is going to be a return to human connection. And here you are exhibiting it already, going out to conferences. So thanks for validating my prediction. But tell me, I'm assuming you can't ignore AI in your line of work. Both the just the technical communication part of it, the programming for LavaCon. I'm assuming it's kind of invaded your life like everyone else. Is that a safe assumption?
We do have a track. Okay, last year's LavaCon, when everyone was talking about LavaCon, it was the main theme of the conference, and I observed a trend, if I may. So, what was it? 4 years ago, everyone going chatbots, chatbots. The future of TechCom is chatbots. Next year, crickets. Year after that, oh my God, VR, the metaverse. Everyone's going to be in the metaverse. Everyone next year, crickets. Right now, we're going AI, AI, AI. I'm going, I don't think we're going to get quite to cricket level on AI, but I don't think, I already know that in my conference that it's not the main focus this year. We have an AI track. Yep, sure. Because you got to know what's coming, what's available, what you can and can't do with it. But we're going back to the basic, treating content as a business asset that you can use to reduce costs or generate revenue. Back to basics.
Yeah, that came up. I just dropped an episode of the other podcast, Content Strategy Insights, yesterday with a woman at Albert Heijn, the big grocery chain here in the Netherlands, and one of her big accomplishments there was getting the enterprise to view content as an asset. And I thought, wow, how did you do that? So I love that that's a focus of yours as well. But tell me, so it's kind of you're showing up and you're obviously not a rah-rah person, but tell me how you see it, AI fitting into tech comms and tech content strategy. What do you think? Because there are some things that are proving to be useful to people, but I gather that you perceive a lot of hype as well.
Yes, more of the latter, less of the former, or it's just not quite here yet. Couple stories on this. I can see a perfect application of AI in TechCom. Take a company like Boeing, who has 10 million pages of documentation in their content management system. Scan that whole data set, find out how many of those pages are sufficiently similar that we can combine them and reuse it and maintain only one source. Brilliant use of AI, right? Or take your legacy documentation, if it's structured using headings, break each heading into a separate topic, automatically populate the meta tags, and I'm assuming your audience knows what meta tags are, and then repost that as chunked individual content pieces. Brilliant use. I can see that. What I'm seeing now, however, is every single tool vendor in every single industry and trade show I've gone to is like, our tool is AI enabled. And one of them was a content management system and I was talking with one of the people and I said, hey, that's great. Show me something in your tool that's AI. She goes, if you create a new topic, we will pre-populate the XML for you. And, First of all, that's called a wizard, and we've had them for decades. What about your tool is artificial intelligence? And she couldn't tell me. So let me get back to the developer. True story, absolutely true story.
Interesting.
So I think what's happening is a lot of these tools, they want to be seen as up to date, and we're just as AI as they are. So we're slapping AI on this, and we're using some sort of tool behind it, or we're using voice recognition. Is it really AI? Don't know. I'm going to get back to another tool vendor in a second. So I mentioned I was just at a trade show, a software engineering trade show yesterday. Got a demo from a vendor who had a a mortgage application tracking system that was AI enabled. And I went, great, show me what it can do. And he goes, watch this. And they used a microphone instead of just typing the command, going, list out every dollar figure in this contract. And it went initial application, $20,000, pre-approval, $10,000, monthly insurance payment, $20. And it just listed a bunch of things. And you just beamed with pride. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, my degree is in computer engineering. I haven't coded in decades. I know I could write a Visual Basic macro that could do that same thing, and I could probably write that in 5 minutes. So again, it's useful, but is it AI? Right? So, okay. So I said I mentioned a third thing. One of the front-end editor tools for a CMS, and that's as specific as I'm going to get on this. I was asserting that we so many times, tech writers, not content strategists as a whole, but let's drop it down into the actual individual contributor for a moment. We document things that don't exist yet. And I said, what if I'm documenting a insulin pump? He goes, let's do. And he went out and used ChatGPT and give me a first draft of a user guide for insulin pump, and came up with 6 steps. Make sure you sterilize the thing first. Make sure you draw the proper dosage, or if you're going to permanent, and it looked fairly good. All right, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a use for this. And then he asked, where did it get that? And he goes, I don't know. That's what AIs do. They go out and they read everything and then give you the best answer. So I'm gonna three tracks of this, 3 comments. So you're gonna have to steer me back if I don't get to all 3.
Mm-hmm.
One of my organizations I belong to offered a webinar on job hunting. Now, mind you, I own a staffing agency. I've been in the business for 25 years, survived two recessions, a dot-com crash, and a pandemic. And it was billed as, you only have so many seconds to be noticed. You need to have a resume that's based on infographics. And it has to have like all these graphics and infographics. And I'm going, no. Just no. See, I know that applicant tracking systems can't read graphics. So I tell people stop using graphics. Now here someone's telling you to really use graphics. All right. So here's what I started doing. I learned to do this decades. If your readers come away with one thing, it's this: who is the source of the information you're getting? Vet the source, right? Just because someone says buy XYZ stock tomorrow, who's telling you that? Your mother? So I said, all right, I am totally willing to be wrong. I'm usually not, but I'm willing to. So I looked. I called up his LinkedIn profile, the person teaching this workshop, because maybe they're an HR manager that's been doing this longer than I have and may have learned something that I didn't. Come to find out, he's an infographic consultant trying to teach people, to sell people to use his services to create infographics. He's not a headhunting. He's not a hiring manager. So as a source of reputable, is actionable? Let's use actionable instead of reputable advice. He's a horrible source of getting actionable advice from, right? That's how I feel about generative AI. I'm not going to act on that unless I know who it came from. There are tools out there now, and I started using one, and I just was going to name one. It came off. It's already slipped out of memory. That it shows you the reference from which it drew that statement.
Yeah, Perplexity does that.
Perplexity.
Yeah.
Why the hell did they use Perplexity? It should be Simplicity, not Perplexity. Who came up with that name?
That's a great question. I haven't thought that. I love that. Yeah. But that's interesting. But that does give the ability to follow a source. That sort of indicates that there's something beyond just the LLM conversational
Mhm.
agent going on there. That they somehow have done like some kind of RAG or something else to a cite sources. But just that notion, like you're right, that's just how AI works. It's a predictive stochastic mechanism that looks at a bunch of stuff. But back to what you were saying, like the idea that one of the things that comes up all the time is that AI is good at creativity, but if you can't be creative about how to operate an insulin pump,
Right.
yeah. So how, but I've heard, like, but it seems like there are things. So much of tech com writing, like, like you mentioned earlier, metadata tagging, like people hate that. It's like, oh, it was the last thing.
Mhm.
Oh, hey, now go tag it. Have you seen applications like AI stuff, like in CMSs or in authoring systems that can help with that kind of stuff? Because that's where what I've seen in other examples is like it's the tedious stuff that humans hate that AIs are often good at.
Yeah.
Have you found some of that, or?
Yeah. Um, for example, if you're documenting software, I believe the tool is called Scriber. I'd have to look it up. It's it'll basically, as you're doing a demo, it's writing down what you're doing. Enter your name in the name field. Do this. It will then do a screen capture for you of the screen you're working on. Right? If you then have to choose animal, vegetable, or mineral, and said, okay, let's do animal first, it will then go, we're doing animal first, and puts a heading in, and then goes back and puts, so it's kind of like a scribe. It's taking
Interesting. Yeah.
screenshots. That's good. Harmless. Again, it's not generating AI. It's generating content. It's grabbing content that you're generating. Perfect application.
Yeah.
I find those little predictive words annoying. Like, I'm going to go and it says to the store, right? No, just turn that off. I'll write what I want to write. Thank you. And really hitting tab to save 2 characters of typing does not save me a lot of time. So yes, there are tools out there. Populate meta tags for me. Here's a good one that you may not have thought of. This is back when we were still doing documentation. One of the poorest things people do is indexes. Indexes and synonyms. I'll give you my classic war story and then the solution to the war story. This is back in the day when we were using CorelDRAW. And I was working on a database documentation, and I wanted to draw a cylinder to show it's a database, because at the time we didn't have, libraries of icons like we do now. So I wanted to have it shaded to show it was round, a cylinder. Looked in the index, nothing under shading. I looked under shadows, nothing. And the help system was small enough at the time that I just hit the first thing in the online help and just hit the next button until I found what I was looking for, because contextual help didn't help at all. Finally found the topic I was looking for. It was called a graduated fill. Okay, clearly the engineer came up with that name, and clearly it's not defined anywhere, nor was it in the index. Shadow wasn't in the index. Shadowing was the index. Circular, anything I thought of as a gerund, right? Creating, shading, were gone. So clearly whoever did that did not do very good indexing. But AI could look at all the verbs possible in this documentation, write the index for you, including synonyms, other words someone else might use to look up that action. Yay! Now I don't have to spend 2 weeks indexing a 500-page manual, not that we're using pages anymore. 500 topic system, let's go with. Let the AI generate the index and then use the AI ability to know what other word would someone use. So we're not just looking for the word graduated fill. I could look up shadow and have the topic still come up.
Right. That's, yeah, exactly that. And that, because that these words are just hovering in vector space, and those are words are close to each other, and they can go like, "Hey, did you mean?" Like picturing Clippy all of a sudden. Sorry. Um, Hey, I wanted to ask you too, I want to make sure we get to this because I kind of shift gears just a little bit here. At least in in parts of the content world right now, there's a lot of anxiety about jobs and job hunting. And you've talked a little bit about, some of the things you've observed about ATSs and stuff like that. But what are the job prospects for technical communicators right now? How's that looking?
Um, Great. Really good. There is no lack of jobs out there. However, all my clients have stopped using me because one, they're kind of on a hiring freeze until they see what happens in November.
Mm.
We're not hiring. We're not hiring. We're going to have a great 2025, but until the end of this year, we're just kind of wait and seeing. That said, every day I see people start on LinkedIn. I started a new job. I started a new job. Right. Again, don't apply through jobs through links. Find somebody in that company and apply that one. Do you remember which show we did on applicant tracking systems? Can we put a link to that in the
Oh
liner
yeah, I'll
notes?
link back to that because that was about 2 years ago on the Content Strategy Insights podcast. Yeah, and you gave a good overview of ATS applicant tracking systems, how they work, how to like hack them, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they
Let's link
still
back
work
to
the
that.
same? Or have they?
They're
Has AI?
worse.
Okay.
They've actually gotten worse. Now, not only are they comparing the requirements against your resume, they're now actually comparing the job description to your resume to see if the words in the job description are in your resume as well. So now your resume to get past the ATS has to mention the requirements, have to work in the job description actions as well. And the classic example I use is a friend of mine was a UX UI developer trying to get a job and wasn't getting hired because her resume said UI UX developer and she was applying for a UX UI developer and the ATS said that doesn't match.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to make one quick point and then get back to your question about
Okay.
in TechCom. The third thing I wanted to point out about using generative to write stuff is if you ask it a question, it will give you an answer. Where there are many things where there's two schools of thought, right? Let's say, how long should a resume be? Right, 1 page, 2 pages. I say a resume should be long enough to show that you match what the reader is looking for. But you ask generative AI, how long should a resume be? And it says 1 page. Doesn't say why. It doesn't say, well, some people say 1 page, some people say 2 pages. Here are the advantages of each. Now, if I put in the prompt, give me the top 2 reasons people say about how long a resume should be and why, well, then I would get the answer I was looking for. But most people who are not used to writing prompts will just go, how long should the new meta, ask me anything, right? Oh, how long should a resume be? That's insufficient data to get the answer you really want, which is give me the top 2 most popular answers and why.
Yeah, as you're talking, you're reminding me that like so much of like a lot of this advice you've given today is like just good old fashioned like critical thinking and thinking things through, like consider the source and kind of understand the systems you're interacting with. I'm just wondering, like, in terms of, and one of the crucial things with AI is kind of like having enough understanding of them to understand, like it seems like
Yes.
it adds just a little twist to all these things you're talking about and kind of applying that, especially the sourcing part of it. You've mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah.
I guess, is that coming up in the day-to-day work for technical communication folks? Like, are the jobs like? Are you hearing from your clients on both sides anything about are the jobs changing much because of AI or?
No, they're not. They're changing a little. And I'll give you a few examples. One of my speakers, who's the head of content strategy from JP Morgan Chase, will write an article and then give it to the AI and said, rewrite this as a CFO would want to read it, or the words they would want to see. Rewrite this as a business analyst would want to read it, or rewrite this as a consumer would want to read it. Because the consumer version, they would define a lot more of the terms than they would. CFO would already know what those is. Brilliant use of AI. Some of the authoring tools, I've seen, if you have a style guide, it will automatically create a draft layout of the document for you. It'll go heading 1 title, heading 1 intro paragraph here, heading 2, which if you do structured, will do it for you anyways. But then oftentimes in tech writing, we go, in this chapter, we discuss blah, 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 or like training. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. Well, what they're doing is they're jumping right to the middle section and just telling them and letting the AI write the summary and then write the intro and then write the summary. How much time does that save? I don't know. There's some cost savings there. Sure. Yeah, of course. Maybe it saves you 10 minutes, and 10 minutes times 500 paragraphs times 300 days. Yeah. Now, a downside in that same example, at the trade show I was just at yesterday, another vendor, it was for a particular programming language. And in this programming language, they had business analysts that talk to the customer and add them standard questions. What is this thing? What's it supposed to do? How many people access it? If it's a loan, what do you base the login ID on? They basically created an AI with a face that smiles and verbalizes, that any time of day, 24 hours a day, could start that program and said, okay, let's run through what I need. And it basically replaced that business analyst with the AI who could populate 80% of what's needed, so the BA can then fill in the rest or verify what was done. I have mixed feelings on this. I mean, if I was paying the BA, great. That just saved 80% of my bill rate. On the other hand, if I'm billing hourly, that just lost 80% of my profit. And the guy was based out of France. I go, well, see, here's the problem with an AI. You can't see me going, or going like this. I'm not sure. Right. And he goes, we're not allowed to. In France, we're not allowed to read expressions or anything other than the words you give us. So, it's like going to McDonald's now, and at the airport. I check myself in. I order my own food, right? At some point, we're going to lose that human touch. And I'm an extrovert. I recharge my batteries being around people, right? I don't, where some people are just the opposite. I know people wear t-shirts that say, don't talk to me. They're quite happy interacting with an AI, so they don't have to people at all. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does. What also is reminding me that like so much of this is about, my fondest hope is that a lot of what you're describing will generate a return to the desire for more human connection and human stuff. Hey, and Jack, I can't believe it. We're coming up close to time already, but before we wrap up, is there anything you want to revisit from the conversation, or just make sure we share before we wrap up?
Yeah. So I saw at another conference a session on how to use AI to write your resume for a job posting. So it said, feed it the job posting, have it come out with the top 10 points, and then make sure those top 10 points are in your resume. And by the time it took 35 minutes to do this exercise, I said I could have done that in 5. Now I can always tell as a recruiter when someone else wrote your resume. I can tell when a resume writer, when you hired someone to write your resume, I can always tell. Because a resume to me is the first example of your writing ability. And that should be a communication from you to me, right? So by using an AI to write that for you, I no longer feel that you're accurately representing your writing ability. Unless However, comma, the job says must have experience using AI in your job. To which you can then say in your cover letter, I used AI to help write this resume, and this is what I did. Okay, all right, fine. Remember, a resume is just a vehicle that shows that you match what the reader's looking for, and that's all it is. So if they're looking for someone who can write with AI, then by golly, you need to show that you can write with AI, right? But if you're working in a financial services firm, what they would not let AI touch your anything if their life depended on it, the last thing they're going to know is someone who's really good with AI, because you may try to use AI in your job, which they absolutely forbid. So in that case, don't write your resume with AI. And it's just tech writing 101. Know thy audience.
Well, and it's communication 101 too. As you talk about it, I'm reminded because other areas of the content world I've been in lately, like the conversation design world, it's so clear from that world that like having an authentic voice, and it's not like we're still in that uncanny valley with these tools that it's clear that they're not actual humans. And why would you want to have one of those machines write your resume? I think your point is well taken there.
At an SCC event, we did a leadership thing where it was just an icebreaker for leaders, and they gave us all flavored lollipops, and we had to do like a 2-minute presentation on why our flavor was best. And one of the groups, there was no rules against this, used an AI to write their paragraph. And then we got to vote on which one we liked best. The AI written one came in last.
Interesting.
So,
yeah. Well, hey, speaking of last, the very last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up, what's the best way for folks to connect you if they want to follow you online or reach out?
as a recruiter, the first place I look when I have a job opening is my first degree connections on LinkedIn. Well, truthfully, the first place I look are the people who've already sent me their resumes. So in the liner notes, there'll be a link to my LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
I'm the only Jack Molisani on LinkedIn. My email address is jackmolisani@prospringstaffing.com. And if you want to come to LavaCon, we have a discount code, LS Podcast will get you $200 off in-person tuition.
Great. I'll put that in the show notes as well so folks can use it. Yeah, thanks. And that's coming up October 27th, I think.
Through the 27th through 30 in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, beautiful Portland.
We're going to have therapy llamas.
Okay, therapy llamas.
I never told you. Okay, how many seconds do we have left?
Well, we have to finish with therapy llamas. Yes.
Okay, so I have to keep remember that I am not my target audience. And every year we end the conference with Andrea Ames doing a design thinking workshop, and we break people into 5 personas: new attendee, returning attendee, blah blah. And one year we did speed networking. All you had to do is go sit at a table, go, "Hi, I'm Jack from ProSpring. Hi, I'm Jack from ProSpring. Hi, I'm Jack from ProSpring," and go around the table. And then 10 minutes later, go to a new table, do the same thing. How hard could this be? Well, apparently, I so traumatized the introverts, making them talk to people, that what they wanted was a quiet room with puppies. So ever since then, we bring in therapy dogs during lunch. So the introverts can pet a puppy and recharge their introvert batteries. And then somewhere during COVID, we brought a live llama because we could. And we did a llama contest, name that llama, which is now Larry, the No Drama Content Llama. It has become the unofficial mascot of LavaCon. And we actually found live llamas to bring into LavaCon San Diego. We're going to do the same thing in Portland. So There's going to be a Chinese dragon parade and therapy llamas.
Excellent. And I love that the llama is named Larry. I'll have to get acquainted when I'm there. So
yes, for sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Resemblance?
We'll find out in Portland. We'll do a side-by-side comparison.
Larry, always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Jack.
For show notes and to sign up for our newsletter, visit our website at contentandai.com. And please rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening.